Counselor Perez,
Present.
present. Counselor Kern,
Present.
present. Counselor Walsh, absent. Counselor Brown,
Present.
present. Counselor Davila,
Present.
present. Counselor Hurst,
Present.
present. Counselor Edwards,
Present.
present. Counselor Allen, absent. Counselor Govan,
Present.
present. Counselor Fenton,
Present.
present. Counselor Whitfield,
Present.
present. Counselor Letterman,
Present. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Will the council and guests please rise and join me in a moment of silence? And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council and guests may be seated. Madam Clerk, please call the first item.
the first item is a bond order for the implementation of the new CAD system for public safety.
Commissioner Calvi.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Okay. This bond is to replace both the fire and police CAD with one unified CAD system. The bond will also cover the expenses for updating the hardware necessary to run the new programs and also build out needed radio infrastructure for the police department's gun unit and upgrade some of the radio communications equipment we have at Roosevelt Avenue. The total bond cost is $3,383,000. And Mr. Plant can speak to the amortization of the bond.
Thank you, Commissioner Calvi. CAFO Plant, would you like to add anything?
No, I'll just wait for any particular questions, but we're going to be authorizing the debt and then selling at some point later in the fiscal year.
Thank you. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend you on your work and everything you do. Is this something that you think that is enough, or how do you think that this is going to factor in as far as the effectiveness and what you need to do?
This is going to be very effective, Councilor Brown. This is the culmination of approximately 2 years in research and development with a outside consultant that the city brought in to help us look at all vendors to unify the CAD system. So with COVID, it slowed us down a little bit, but it's taken us about 2 years to write an RFP. We received, I believe, 8 responses. We narrowed that field down to 2 finalists. Over the past 2 years, the fire and police departments, along with the Emergency Communications Bureau, came to rest on Motorola as our preferred vendor. Then the consultant, along with the city, entered in the contract negotiations with Motorola, and we've come up with the pricing on all equipment and hardware, software to get the project done.
Okay, and once again, you know, I work closely with you guys as far as a lot of this stuff goes. I know it's very difficult, and I commend you. Is Motorola, are they going to help us in any way too? I mean, I know they don't have to. I'm just wondering. I mean, it has nothing probably outside of the spectrum of what's going on. You know, I know it's very difficult for a lot of organizations to try to get a lot of the equipment and a lot of things in place. I don't think people understand how hard it is. So I commend you in what you're doing. Is it something that we can expand? How soon can we expand even more? You know, as far as the capabilities of what we're trying to do, because I do know what you're doing, and I know you have a very difficult job when it comes to it. And you know, we're just talking about right now.
So this program will allow the city to build into the future. What this is going to do is, right now, the fire department operates on an Interact CAD system, which is end of life.
Yes.
And the police department operates on an IMC CAD system, an RMS system, which are both end of life. So this new unified system will enhance the workflows of both fire and police dispatchers. It'll give the police a much needed new RMS system that's fully queryable from the field, and it will build out the needed radio infrastructure for the future for the police department.
Okay, and you think it's enough?
I believe it is, based on the contract negotiations and based on our talks with our consultants and everything, that I believe this is enough at this time to build out what we need.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your service and all you do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
Good evening. I got two questions. Commissioner, this is part of what we had a good public safety meeting, which you explained this, but just to make sure, this is part of the unified kit system that you talked about in the public safety meeting, correct?
Yes,
In other
sir.
words, giving the ability for the police and the fire to talk to each other.
Yes, sir. This will give police and fire the ability to talk to each other. And also with this new CAD system, we'll be able to link our CAD with the AMR CAD. So we'll be able to look at what AMR is responding to for calls that we've given them.
So it's going to integrate all three then?
Yes.
Okay, so there's more accountability. Good. That I did not know, Commissioner. Good, excellent. So, Commissioner, this is, of course, this is something that it's a must. This is not a need. This is a must, of course, you know. And so, anything that can provide us, as I said before, a better service, I'm all for. And so, I will be voting in favor of this. I just have if I may, a quick question for TJ, just kind of like trying to get a bigger picture here. TJ, you still on the line?
I'm here.
Okay, hell. TJ, so I'm going to be voting in favor of this, of course. You know, it's not a need, like I say, it's a must. And so I just feel like we have approved several bonds since we approved the 1 billion, I think, was bond for the pension obligation. And I know you guys, you know, decided to shelve it for now. I'm just trying to think the impact on that future project. If we, I just want to, you know, if you could give me like a quick thought on it.
So right now, the Fed's going to raise interest rates again, I believe, as early as tomorrow. So I think anything related to pension obligation bonds should have sailed for quite some time until the market corrects itself. So I'm not overly concerned about that piece.
Okay.
As far as the capital plan is concerned, we've been planning for the CAD upgrade for a couple of years now, just waiting to get the numbers from the procurement process that we went through. So
Okay.
we're very comfortable with the numbers and what we're about to do.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Commissioner. And of course, I'm going to be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Are there any other questions for Commissioner Calvi or CAFO Plant on this bond order? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, we'd ask you to call the roll on authorizing the bond.
On authorizing the bond, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh, absent. Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen, absent. Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient and the bond is authorized. Is there a motion to suspend Rule 19?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion is made by Counselor Whitfield, seconded by Counselor Edwards to suspend Rule 19. Seeing no discussion, Madam Clerk, without objection, please call the roll on suspending Rule 19.
On suspension of Rule 19, Counselor Perez.
yes,
Yes, Counselor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Walsh, absent. Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen, absent. Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient and the motion passes. Rule 19 is suspended. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Next item is an order transfer stabilization reserve to Police Department in the amount of $550,000.
Is there anybody here to speak to this item?
Councilor Letterman, this is Kathleen Breck, Deputy City Solicitor, City Law Department. If there are any questions regarding the order, the amount of the transfer is to cover the compliance evaluator, which will be the final selection should happen this Thursday. It's a cooperative goal between the Department of Justice and the city. And then the additional $50,000 is for the IIU attorney, which is also required by the settlement agreement.
Thank you, Attorney Breck. Counselor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any questions regarding the compliance evaluator's position. Seems like, that certainly is something that we need as a result of the consent decree, and something that I agree with the process that they've set out to do and have done. And I actually was on the call on this past Thursday, and seems like we got some really qualified firms that are looking to do that great work. What I don't agree with is the $50,000 that we've allowed it for Attorney Kevin Murphy to be the attorney to the IIU department and helping to be sort of that liaison. I have a number of issues that haven't been addressed. The fact that we talked about this in the finance meeting last week. They didn't advertise the position. In addition, no one else had the opportunity to apply for this particular commission. For this particular position, sorry. There was no one from the community that was involved in the hiring of this position. In addition, Attorney Murphy doesn't reside in the city of Springfield, which means that he's going to have a very difficult time relating to the individuals that are actually filing these complaints, which I have a problem with. It's also clear that Attorney Murphy, from my perspective, was handpicked in all of this. And when you look at that, and then you look at the bulk of his career, it's pretty frustrating, because the bulk of his legal career was spent defending police officers. And when you start identifying the cases in which he was involved in, Nathan Bills stands out. We awarded over $1 million or close to $1 million in that particular case. He also defended the police officers in the Shan case, which resulted in a $6.5 million settlement. And so, when you start to look at it all, it's extremely frustrating. And, the fact that these
It appears that we may have lost Counselor Hurst. And so we will allow him to reclaim the floor when he rejoins, and we'll go to Counselor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do I have a good signal, or?
Yes, we can hear you clearly, Counselor Brown.
Okay. So I would probably not so strongly reiterate my colleagues' concerns, but kind of we do have the similar concerns when it comes to the certain selection process and our awareness of this selection process. I am a person who wants to work with everyone when it comes to everyone's voice being heard. So, you know, I'm very diplomatic. I believe when it comes to certain selection process, we can be more, I don't know the correct word. Maybe some of my colleagues can explain it better than I can, but I do kind of have the same type of concern. Not saying the actual selection of the individual. I believe, yeah, you know, I mean, he'll do a good job, but it's very disheartening that we weren't able to have some actual selection as a body. I understand that sometimes these things can be done and they're time sensitive, but I believe as far as constituents and people in the community, that the selection process, you know, some of the city council should have had a little bit more hands-on ability to be able to select it. Not saying that I don't agree with the actual selection. I just kind of really want to hope that we can work a lot better when it comes to selecting people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. I'm going to give the floor back to Councilor Hurst to finish the statement that he was making, and then we'll go to Councilor Govan, followed by Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Hurst.
Much appreciated, Councilor Letterman, and I apologize for that. But, you know, the fact that he spent the bulk of his legal career actually defending the cops, and now, you know, he's supposed to be responsible for assisting the internal investigations unit in the process of investigating citizens' complaints is concerning. And if anything, it just doesn't look good from an optics standpoint. You know, it is far, in my opinion, from transparent, and it just seems like a disingenuous effort from the administration to fill a very important position as it relates to the city's role in the implementation of the consent decree. I just would add that there's also an inherent conflict of interest. The idea that we don't think that this particular individual who has defended these individual officers who are still on the force aren't going to come up as individuals that he might need to in turn investigate in his new role is, you know, is just not true. I mean, it's going to happen, and there is going to be a conflict of interest at some point in time in which he's going to have to, in my opinion, remove himself from being that particular attorney. And the question is, why would we even put ourselves in that particular situation? And then when you look at the perception from the community, you know, the idea that the community, you know, it's just, they're going to look at this individual attorney as he's not going to be able to be impartial. And then when you look at the fact that he's going to serve in this role, there are many people who are relying on this settlement agreement to now have some restored faith in the police department. And they certainly won't be able to do that if this particular attorney is allowed to actually be that individual who is going to assist the IU department. And so, you know, I think it's problematic on a number of levels. And the fact that you've had this special meeting even after my initial concerns in the finance meeting, and then we weren't able to separate the 500,000 from the other 50,000 in these particular orders, you know, just leads me to believe that folks are trying to, you know, force this down our throats and say, you know, if you don't accept this particular order, then, you know, you're not going to have the money for the compliance officer. And if you look at the DOJ, when they were involved, they did everything that they should have done in terms of involving the community. In fact, they were a model for what it is that we should be doing. And so the first opportunity in which the administration and the police department were responsible for appointing somebody to implement the consent decree, we in turn had a private process that was not open to anybody is disappointing, troublesome, and problematic. And so my hope is that, you know, all of my colleagues will look at this as an issue and vote this order down tonight and have them go back to the drawing board. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Councilor Hurst, and Councilor Brown for reiterating what the concerns are with this item. I'm not understanding why both items are put together, why the compliance officer piece is put together with the IIU attorney. I don't understand that, first of all. And I'm sure that Attorney Murphy is a very good attorney. I'm sure he's done great work. As Councilor Hurst, he's won cases for the police department, or lost cases for the police department. I'm not sure which one it is. But either way, I'm sure he's a great attorney, you know, who doesn't happen to live in Springfield, who, like Councilor Hurst said, has defended police officers. And in this role, of course, he's going to be doing the opposite. So I agree with, you know, what was said. And what I heard, I think the other day at I think it was the finance meeting, is that, you know, attorneys don't need to get vetted. The position for the attorneys who are going to be hired by the city do not have to be posted. And that's concerning, right? Because what I hear when I hear that is, that's just the way we do things. That's, you know, it's always been done that way, and there's no need to change them. However, that way of doing things got us to a consent decree. And I'm hoping that we can send this back and have them separate the two items so that we can decide on them separately. Because there's no way that I personally, you know, as a representative of the constituents in my community, can agree to this. You know, what was said previously is exactly true. You know, there's no way for us to be able to say, okay, well, we vetted this, you know, team to be compliance officers and to, you know, determine that we're doing the consent decree the way we're supposed to. And then on the other hand, we're going to hire an attorney to investigate officers who defended officers. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So that is my take on this. I will have to vote no on this because there's no way that I think the DOJ, the consent decree, if we looked at it, you know, and put them together, there's no way that this could be ethical. There's no way that this could be right. You know, I think that if we had to choose a lawyer for this position, they should have had no relationship with the police department to begin with. Should have been somebody from our community who knows our community and who knows our officers and who knows the residents of the city of Springfield. So that is my opinion, and I will be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Whitfield, followed by Councilor Brown. Councilor Whitfield, you are muted.
Oh, sorry about that. So I'm just going to echo what my colleagues have said. What really concerned me when we were on the finance committee meeting was the fact that, I don't remember, I think it was Councilor Govan asked what was the process. And the process was this person just called and said they were interested in the position. Just called and said they were interested in the position. And I don't know what form of government this is, that anyone can just call and say they're interested in a position and get it. But that shouldn't be the form of government in Springfield. It feels like the same, and if anyone gets offended, I apologize, but it seems like the same good old boys club that we've been dealing with for my entire life, for my parents' entire life, for my grandparents' entire life, for my great-grandparents' entire life, and we can keep on going back for 400 years. Same thing. It feels like a smack in the face. It just really feels bad. And then I asked the question, well, is there any qualified attorneys, even if they
you know, even if they represented police in the past, is there any qualified attorneys of color in the city of Springfield that's high on the bar scale? That wasn't meant to be offensive. That was a real question. Because a lot of times when people are just selected by this administration, they're white males. The whole entire PRC, Personnel Review Committee, are white males. The decision makers at the top that decides who's going to get raises, how much, when, if it's going to be approved, white males, all three. This is not equitable, guys. We are supposed to be changing the process of how we do things and live in the city of Springfield, especially when the majority of the folks that live in the city are people of color. Yet the same old processes and procedures are going to continue to happen. You know why? Because the same old people are appointed by the administration to do the work. And if we as a body don't stand up and make a change, then the changes may not happen. We can't keep allowing rich to get richer, which it was very disappointing that so many of us voted for the rich to get richer. And then $2.4 million behind the scenes going to Rayford Pellegrino. I know these aren't the specific issues, Counselor, but I'm just tired of seeing the same old politics in the city of Springfield. And then we always hear, I don't trust the politicians. Well, I can understand. I can understand because we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. We have an opportunity to make a change as a body. We have an opportunity to do it right now today. And it's time for us to do it. We can't keep just letting it slide by because this is what the administration wants. It's wrong. And like Councilor Govan said, we're in this position because of what the city administration has let go on for so long, and our police department has been wrong. They let people get off that were wrong. They don't even get investigated and they lose civil cases. So some judge, some jury is saying they're wrong, but the city of Springfield administration don't see that. This is wrong. No way I'm voting for it. No way. If they come back, I agree. I was on the call too with the compliance. I think there's some good candidates there. I hope that is a fair process when they finally decide who is going to be the compliance officers. But the choosing of this particular attorney was not right. It was not a fair process. It was not equitable. It was not posted. All these knots that happen cannot continue to happen in the city of Springfield. So for me, Mr. President, it will be a no.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Me personally, and I think a lot of people understand that I come from a cop background. My father was head of internal affairs. So I've always been a firm supporter of the police. I'm a police kid. I love the cops, but I love good cops. When it comes to certain things like this, it's red flags. That's why with my colleagues, I have to still lean to their side. It was a situation where it was a discrepancy, and they tried to use my father as a scapegoat based on them doing illegal stuff. My father is a well-respected police figure. I want everyone to want to be able to protect and serve the badge. A lot of people nowadays, you cannot find police officers. So it's nothing, it is personal. When my colleagues, they have that intensity and they're disgruntled, like feelings based on certain cops, I understand what they feel. I felt that, but I'm a cop's kid. So I also know what certain good cops have to deal with. So on this particular matter, I'm just very, very, very very, I mean, I don't know. My colleagues know that I'm a cop kid. It's not the administration against us, but I wasn't contacted. I didn't know anything. We haven't talked about this. It's not us against them. It's the community working together to be able to solve these different decisions that are impacting us. And I love the mayor. He's one of my mentors. I haven't talked to anybody. So when my colleagues have certain discrepancies where they're saying, whoa, what? We don't hear, I haven't heard anything else. I haven't heard anything either, guys. So I will lean on the side of my colleagues and definitely vote against this. These are things that we have to work together to decide. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to take a little bit of a different approach here, if I may, sir. I do have a question. I believe if I heard Councilor Gavan correctly, this position doesn't not have to be posted for the law department. Who's in the law? I think Attorney Breck, perhaps, Mr. President, could answer that question.
Yeah, Deputy Solicitor Breck.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Councilor Davila. Could you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, good evening, Kathy. So I just want to follow up with what Councilor Govan stated on the floor, just to make sure that I'm correct. There's attorney's position in the law department don't have to be posted. Is that correct?
Well, first of all, Councilor Davila, this is not a position in the law department. It's not an employee. It is an attorney position out of the police department, and it's an outside. It's almost like a consultant contract. So Attorney Murphy's contract is a contract to provide legal services to the police department in advising the internal investigation unit on certain policies, procedures, developing a manual, assisting them in coming into compliance with the settlement agreement terms. And so that is the purpose of that position.
Right, so
it
this
does not have to be posted. Attorneys, when the city or any other governmental agency hires attorneys, they do not have to go out to bid. They don't have to post the positions. It's a position of trust and confidence, and the department head, for the most part, makes that decision.
Okay, so that I'm clear. So in this position, the city didn't have to put an RFP because it's a position of trust, and it's going to basically a vendor contractor. And any other attorney within the law department, does that have to be posted or not?
So again, this is not an attorney with the law department. He's not a law department employee. He's a contractor with the police department.
Correct.
If you're interested, the law department attorneys, when you're hiring an attorney as an employee, typically the human resources department has us post the positions, but it's not a requirement. But we do, at most of our positions, we do post. But sometimes, for example, Attorney Ken Shea is a perfect example. He was the right person for the job, for the attorney for the city council, and we weren't going to find anybody more qualified than he. So I'm very happy that he agreed to join us. But you see what I mean? Like when you have a person who's a good fit for it, at least in the law department, sometimes it's the position gets posted, but you want to make sure you have the person with the right experience and skills, et cetera. But again, this position is not a law department position. It was not selected by the law department. It was a police department selection.
So Attorney Breck, so just I'll make sure that I understand you clearly. If I understood correctly, you're saying that even within the law department in and of itself, the city does, for the most part, does post the positions, sometimes, not always, because they're basically a trust position, correct?
Right. Positions of attorneys are not, when you're hiring a non-employee, It does not have to be posted, and there's no requirement of a bid process or a request for proposals process. It's an exempt. There are a number of categories that are exempt from any kind of a public procurement process, and
Right.
hiring attorneys and other professionals like accountants and other types of positions. There's no requirement for that.
Right.
Right. And separately, if you're posting for an employee, it is the city's policy to post the positions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, Attorney Breck, I understand what you're saying, but I'm getting a little confused here. Are in law department attorneys city employees?
Of course.
So where do we get, help me to understand. I understand there's a position of trust, and yes, I want the best lawyer there, money can buy. But I'm just trying to understand, is it a state law that would have to be posted, or is there a decision that City Hall makes to post as needed? I'm going to use the word.
I think maybe I wasn't being clear. When you're hiring an employee, there are no requirements for a bid process or, a posting process. It's a city, the Human Resources Department would be better able to explain it, but there's a city process that positions get posted, and there's an application period, and then the department head has the authority to review the qualifications and try to select people for interviews, but it's really up to the department head. And or sometimes if it's, for example, a department head position, that would be a mayoral appointment. Ultimately, it's up to the department head or the mayor to select the most qualified person. And again, what Attorney Murphy's position would be as the IIU attorney, he is not an employee of the city. He's like a contractor.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
So thank you, Attorney Breck, for that explanation. I'm still unclear about a few items, but maybe this is conversation for later. And so now, is this Attorney Murphy, is he going to only advise the internal affairs?
The settlement agreement, for the most part, calls for the IIU attorney to advise the internal investigation unit. There are some, because I wrote the contract, that's how I know the details of it. I don't have it with me, but there are some aspects where he may be in a position to review other policies that aren't involved with the IIU. But for the most part, the focus is bringing the IIU into compliance with the settlement agreement.
Would you be able to give me an example of what other policy that might be?
I don't have it with me.
Mm-hmm.
I could send it to you tomorrow morning. There are probably 20 or 30 bullet points in the settlement agreement that refer to the IIU attorney, and from time to time the IIU attorney might need to go to a meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners to talk about a policy here or there, or he might have to talk to the police superintendent about a particular policy, it's hard to give a specific example.
I understand that, Attorney Breck. Thank you for your attempt to explanation. So I am allowed, Mr. President, if you indulge me like 1 more minute, I just want to ask, because this question of RFP or how do we get this guy, it seems to be like in everybody's mind. So I'm going to ask it, how do we get him? Did he walk into City Hall and say, I'm here to apply for a job, or did City Hall call him? How do we get Attorney Murphy here?
I don't have personal knowledge of how he went about it, but it's my understanding it was Superintendent Clapprood's decision that he was the right fit for the job based on his qualifications, his experience. I happen to have worked with him years ago in the district attorney's office for several years. He's done work for the city in other capacities. He's done work for our office on a contract when we were helping out someone that their property was being taken by eminent domain, and they needed to have an attorney that assisted them, and Attorney Murphy assisted his family through a contract with our department. I know Judge Payne think, holds him in high regard as a former judge. But, he didn't just walk in and say, can I have the job? He was, I assume that he was selected based on his qualifications, his experience, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Bragg. Mr. President, I'm just gonna, if I please, I have a question. I don't know who should address this question, maybe to our Attorney Shea perhaps, but is this order one package or can this be split, sir? Or even yourself, Mr. President, you can answer that question. You muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I think that question would probably be best answered by CAFO Plant.
Mr. Cathal Plant, are you online, sir?
So I actually was just talking to the council president earlier today about the process in which to split it up, if we can split it up by an amendment today or not. And I did not get the answer by the time the meeting started. So I'm not sure of the process. If it's an amendment on the floor, I'm not sure exactly how to go about it. So I'm not prepared for that. I'm still researching that question, if that helps.
Maybe Mr. President, former Council Attorney Shea might have chime in, maybe.
Attorney Shea. Attorney Shea, you are muted, sir.
Now, can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yep, you should be good.
Okay. I would be in the same position, and I'd have to look into it to give you an answer as to whether or not this could be split. So I don't.
Okay.
So just, am I all right? Sorry. So Mr. President, if it's voted down tonight, I will certainly bring back the orders in two separate orders for the next meeting that is available.
All right, thank you, TJ. Mr. President, I'm just going to make a final observation, then I'm going to yield the floor, but it will seem to me, I want to be very careful with my words, Mr. President, but it will seem to me that with everything that has been going on in the city, with the microscope that we have on us from the DOJ, the police department was accused of some heavy stuff that will be more transparent, because honestly, Mr. President, with all the respects involved to all involved in this process, I think that if the average citizen was looking at this, they might be thinking this smells fishy. And I don't know this Attorney Murphy. I'm sure he has wonderful qualifications, but I got so much more questions than answers. So I just don't feel comfortable with this portion of the $50,000 for the attorney. I wish that we can either split it up or come back later with a different order. But if this goes forward as planned today, I will be voting against it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Councilor Perez, followed by Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the questions that I have, and probably Attorney Shea could answer, is this consultant is going to be part of the community complaint when it comes to the police? He's going to be involved with the community complaints, or just policy? Because I hear the word policy. So for appointed education, I want someone to answer that question for me. Thank you so much.
Well, I think the best that I can do from my position just coming into this is, it sounded from the discussion as though whoever the attorney is, whether it's Murphy or someone else, is going to be providing information to the rest of the people working for the federal government on policies within the department. I didn't see where he was going to work with individuals, but his role is to assist the rest of the board that's doing the work for the city on straightening out the problems we have with the police department.
And I have concern because I have been very vocal going to some experience when it comes to the community complaints. And that's one of the issues that has not been clarified when it comes to the policy. That's one of my issues. My second issue on the matter is that we have an attorney right now that has been assigned practically And I have not given no information as a city councilor to give input to the community. So I think at this point, and I have to agree with Councilor Davila when it comes to the split, I was going to ask for that, a splitting this amount, and I don't know, working it through the finance committee. I still have concerns and has not been clarified. So unfortunately, until we clarify all this information, I have to vote no on this decision that we're making today until all other concerns are answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Brown, followed by Councilor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know who I might ask this question to, but do you guys know who is the chair of our committee when it comes to these situations? And did you ever schedule a meeting with them? Mr. President, maybe you can
Councilor, I think relative to, if the question is relative to appointment or the decision to appoint an individual, I think probably likely Deputy Solicitor Breck would be the one with knowledge of that, if anybody on this meeting had it.
And as far as our chair, wouldn't it be like public safety? Who wouldn't they have reached out to a chair? I mean, it just, what makes it odd to me, Mr. President, is that I'm just trying to clarify, and I'm referring to the chair just to make sure that there's clarification when it came to petitioning the right chairs, because from what I hear, the chairs haven't even been properly petitioned in the right committees. Is there a way we can clarify that, Mr. President?
Councilor Brown, I think probably the relevant committees, to answer your question or your point of information, as I would say, the correct committees would probably have been the Finance Committee and or the Public Safety Committee.
Yeah. So a lot of times when it comes to a lot of these matters, this is where I keep saying, all of us are experts, and we always, you know, we're very precise in what we are assigned to do. And I don't know, is there a way where I can like point a committee, let's send it to a committee and let's go on with it, because they haven't really spoken to us about this stuff. And I would yield to Councilor Edwards first, because I'm sure he'll understand what I'm speaking of. But you know, I just don't really think that the matter has really been addressed properly, and I would want to try to make a motion to send it to committee.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Are you making that motion at this time?
Yes.
There's been a motion to send item 2 to committee. Is there a second?
Second.
And I don't know who committee. So if someone could at least, maybe Councilor Whitfield committee or one of their committees.
It came out of the Finance Committee, so to answer your point of information, it would return to the Finance Committee.
Yes. Okay.
Motion has been made to send the item to committee by Councilor Brown. It was seconded by Councilor Hurst. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Edwards?
Yes, actually, Councilor Brown did exactly what I intended to do, at least ask the question of the possibility of having this sent back to committee. And when it comes back, I believe TJ had made reference to the fact that there is a possibility that if he would bring it back separate, it's obvious from, just the count and from the comments of my colleagues tonight, this is not passing tonight. I can't say it would pass after a committee meeting, but this obviously is not passing tonight. And if it comes back where there's a separation between what is required by the federal mandate of the DOJ, that possibly would be approved. But the hiring of this particular attorney, there is not enough or an appetite by this council there And perhaps that in the form of the motion that Council Brown would satisfy that, where it can go to committee, give TJ enough time to be in the law department, whoever needs to separate these two items, bring them back and give us a bite of the apple where we are voting on the DOJ's requirement, and they can figure out how they want to do the attorney thing, but obviously it's not passing tonight. So I believe the motion has been made, it's been seconded, and I'll wait to hear the vote on the motion as made.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. On the motion, Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, I don't think I was the one that seconded that. If I did second it, I would withdraw it. My preference is to actually vote this item down. I think if we voted this item down, we send a message to the Department of Justice that what it is that we're doing right, what it is that the administration is doing is inexcusable and unacceptable. And I think we need to send that message first. It's not as though they can't come back at the next meeting with a separate order. They had an opportunity to come back with a separate order and they didn't do it. I mean, we re-noticed the meeting. It's not like it's going to go to the finance committee and we're going to have a different discussion. I just don't see that happening. We've discussed everything that we need to discuss. And my thought process is that we should just vote it down. And that sends a message that, you know what, the city council has a role to play and we're executing our role. And we don't believe that this is acceptable. And the way in which government is working, that the administration wants it to work is not acceptable. So I would recommend that folks vote this item down and let them come back with two separate orders at our next meeting.
Mr. President, I was Maria Perez. I was the one who seconded. And on the matter, I have to say, I am concerned about, because it was put together, one, and two, besides the finance committee, I think we got a government issue here. I don't know, how could we entertain a motion that it be the finance and the government committee, if that's appropriate, Mr. President, because there's some other questions that needs to be addressed to this council. So I just leave the floor up to you, Mr. President, for the decision making.
Thank you, Councilor Perez and Councilor Hurst. It was Councilor Perez who was the seconder on the motion, Councilor Whitfield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to have to agree with Councilor Hurst because it went to finance. We discussed it in finance, and folks is asking it to go back to finance, didn't show up for finance. And I'm not saying they didn't have other obligations, they could have, but the recording is there to watch. It went to finance. We did this. We expressed our concerns in finance, and yet it wasn't separated. They knew the concerns. It was a very, very heated conversation. They knew the concerns there. It's all on the recording. And I just don't think it needs to go back to committee. I don't. And so I'm going to vote no on the motion. I would prefer just to vote. If the motion doesn't pass, I want to move the question from there.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Is there any further debate on the motion? Councilor Brown on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. A lot of times, as far as when it comes to certain data, I'm always very privy to it, and I make sure that I'm educated on what's going on. When it came to the actual solution of this particular matter, no. A lot of times, as far as me and the administration, I don't have a working relationship where I have to go to subcommittee meetings. I'll actually speak with the mayor, or he'll speak with me, or I'll speak with his staff and they'll speak with me. You know, if I hear something, I'll get it and I'll do it. You know, so I have a great working relationship even before I became a city councilor. That was how I was able to help us with the rate of the facial recognition stuff. But when it comes to this thing, I'm just saying, Do I believe that the actual individual will be a good person? Probably. Who knows? Not who knows. I'm not saying it like that. I look at my colleagues. I understand what Counselor Hurst says. I understand what Counselor Whitfield say. I just want to be able to be in more of a process when it comes to the actual body. I don't want to get into some big brawl, big political screaming, and I'm not coming to meetings. And, it's about really trying to figure out who's going to do the right thing as far as representing people. I just think that we need to speak about it more. I think a lot of times I would be afraid to talk to Counselor Whitfield because, and that's because of her passion, her tenacity might make him afraid. I don't know. I'm not into that. Let's get it back to her. She knows what she's doing. I believe she knows what she's doing. She's a smart individual. Can we revisit it? If I missed the meeting, okay, shame on me. Let's do it again. Let's send it to her committee. Let's all figure it out. I believe if we can send it to her committee and we all look at it this time, I don't believe she's going to do the wrong thing. I don't believe we'll do the wrong thing as far as constituents say. Let's just send it back. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Curran, followed by Councilor Govan.
Just a quick question, Mr. President. Councilor Winfield, I was not at those meetings, but I just had a question. Were anyone from IIU or Commissioner Clapprood or even was Judge Payne there at all to explain their position on this matter?
Yes, Judge Payne was there.
Okay. It would be, my thought would be at least somebody from IIU or even Commissioner Clapprood could be there and explain why they feel that Attorney Murphy is a strong choice. So, I kind of am in the camp of to send it back to committee, although we've had it in committee, just to hear from the individuals who will be working with this attorney as to why they want to work with this attorney and his qualifications for the position. So I'm going to vote in favor of sending it back to committee. I think let's continue the process. I understand there's a lot of frustration on the floor tonight, but I think maybe let's give IIU and Commissioner Clapprood an opportunity to be heard as to why Attorney Murphy will be a good fit for this role and how we can lead the department and comply with the DOJ requirements. Thank you.
Mr. President, can I just respond to that really quickly?
Yes, Councilor Winfield.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say, and I don't know, maybe Commissioner Oyola know, but when items involve certain departments, do they get notifications of the meeting?
Counselors, any meeting that we have is sent to all departments. So there's a mass email that gets sent. So the same thing that you see in your agenda, they see in an email.
And so my point, and the reason that I asked that is because they were invited. They had the invitation, Commissioner Clapprood included. She could have showed up. She knew what this bond was for. She knows what the entire bond is for, is because of the police department. If it wasn't for the actions of the police department, we wouldn't have had the DOJ report. We wouldn't need this bond. So she did get notification. The fact that you don't show up to something that's important is your personal decision. So she got notification, just like everyone else, just like us, and made a decision not to show up. And so for me, it's still going to be a no, because how many times do we have to personally call them? Do we beg them? No one personally called any of us that showed up. Our time is just as important and valuable as anybody else. And no one had to hold our hands and ask us to be there. We show up because it's what we're supposed to do for the community. It's what we're supposed to do for our committees. I held the committee meeting as fast as I could. after we knew about it. We didn't know about it right away. We didn't know how the process works. We asked these questions, and what was told to us on the finance committee meeting is this person asked for this position and got it, period. That came from Judge Payne. So yes, they all did get notification, and they chose whether to show up or not. Thank you, Judge Payne, for showing up. Thank you, Kathy Breck, for showing up. If Commissioner Clapper, she may have had some other obligation, but she could have communicated that. We could have rescheduled the meeting. None of that happened. So I just wanted to say that, Mr. President. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Govan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think the question was whether this this item had been sent to a committee. And as Councilor Whitfield said, it was sent to the committee before it came to our council meeting. So the whole package together, we didn't, Councilor Whitfield, correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't find out about it until we had to have this meeting. So then when we did have the meeting, we asked these questions, these same questions that we're asking today. And I think that none of us has a problem with the compliance unit giving $500,000 to them. I don't think any of us have a problem with that. We actually were invited to the interviews with the compliance units that were, vying for the position. And I saw some very good candidates there. We were never informed about the $50,000 for Attorney Murphy until we saw this thing together, right? So that's where the issue lies, right? And I thought, well, yeah, let's send it back to committee. But then I'm thinking, well, we already did that, as Councilor Whitfield reminded me. So again, and I really love that on TJ Plant. Again, congratulations on being the best finance department in the world. But he suggested, right, that we could divide it, have $500,000 in one pot, and then the $50,000 for the officer. But I think having that, we'll have a better opportunity as to ask these further questions. Why, right? Judge Payne said it. He thinks that Attorney Murphy is the best attorney that there is, and that he should have this position. However, I don't think that anyone is taking into consideration the community. And they're not taking into consideration the history behind why we are here with a consent decree. So, I agree. I think we should really not send it to committee and just vote it down so that we can have TJ come back with the separate orders, and we could vote on the compliance unit, which I think everyone is in favor of. And then we could discuss the possibility of having other candidates as an attorney for the police department's IU unit. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. This is debate on the motion to send the item to the Finance Committee. Councilor Perez on the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My concern is not only voting it now. My concern is that there's so many questions that need to be answered at this point. And voting it out is not going to get us to an outcome. That's why I am so animated sending it to committee, because there's other questions that for my purpose of educating my community, I have to ask. So at this point, it's not only turning it down. I hear loud and clear my colleagues, but there's two issues here. This budget has been combined. That's one of the issues. I don't know why it was not separated. And the second, still, it has been, when it comes to the Latino community, one of the biggest issues there has been is the complaints, where the complaints are filed with the police department. I don't know what, in reality, I don't know what role this lawyer or any lawyer that's going to be hired is going to play, except that the explanation tonight was that he was going to deal with policies and policies. What are the policies? So I could read it, I could understand it, and I could explain to my community. That's why I was entertaining having this issue back into committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Hurst.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to Councilor Perez's point, I think, the frustration that I have with sending it to committee is that we're sending it to committee as a combined package. where we're having to deal with the compliance officer as well as this particular attorney. And I think, you know, from my standpoint, they should be separated. And if we send it to committee, we're going to come back and we're going to have a debate over this order as one package, one order. So that order is going to include the compliance officer, which we all agree with. We all agree with the money going to the compliance officer because they've done the right thing. They've involved the community. They've had an opportunity for us to answer questions, and we've had an opportunity to watch them answer the questions that we have. And then we've also had an opportunity to submit feedback in response to their responses to our questions. This is not the same thing that has happened with our attorney. And so if we send this back to committee, we're sending it back to committee as a full package. If you kill it now, they come back to us with two separate orders. And if we don't like the explanation when it comes back to us as two separate orders, then we can in turn send that one order for $50,000 back to committee and we can get the answers that you want us to get. And I just don't think that's going to happen if we vote to send this entire item to committee. It's going to come back to us as an entire item of $550,000. In order for us to break it up, we must vote no tonight. And, you know, I don't see any other way around it. So I would recommend that my colleagues vote no to send this to committee and then have TJ, who knew about it. I mean, he was informed about it by the administration, or he was informed about it by watching the meetings. He knew this was an issue, which is why he started to research it in advance. He knew. And they also knew that they didn't get it back to us in time to separate the orders. I say give them the time to separate the orders and vote this no tonight to send to committee and then vote this item down.
Thank you, Councilor Hurst. Councilor Whitfield.
And I just wanted to say that usually when financial orders come up, we have a finance committee meeting on Monday before the meeting to discuss the financial orders. So if we did vote this down and it was split into two financial orders, we will have a finance committee meeting anyway. So that's what I ask the staff to do. If there's like financial orders that come up, to let's just schedule a finance meeting and we'll discuss it anyway. So we'll have a finance committee meeting if it's broken down into the two financial orders, or if we send it to committee, which I'm not voting to do, but I think it makes more sense to let TJ break it into two orders and then have a finance committee meeting and we could discuss both or one. Like everyone's saying, there's no problem with the compliance officer. I think it was a really good structure and a good meeting, but we need, like Council Perez says, we do need more information on the 50,000. So I just wanted to explain that.
Thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is for TJ. What do you think as far as the conversation you guys had with Councilor Whitfield? What was that about?
So I'm not sure the entire conversation, but that you're referring to. I know my team, I was on vacation last week. I know my team had a couple of meetings. Then we had the meeting last Monday where we didn't have enough votes to pass it. And I understand the issue that came up. I was well briefed by Lindsay. The issue I just want to kind of say is I have no problem. If you vote it down, I have no problem bringing it back as separate issues. But I do want to comment on, this was not a nefarious attempt to combine the two. This was just us looking at it as they're both regarding the consent decree. The IIU attorney was chosen. It was just a cost. It wasn't anything that was malicious, like, oh, let's just jam it down the throat of the city council. That was not my intent when we sponsored it as a 550. I understand that came out last Monday. I understand the debate today, and I'm happy. If you don't send it to committee, I'm happy to bring it back for an appropriation of two separate appropriations.
Okay, and I appreciate you. Like I said, I understand my colleague, Councilor Whitfield, is a monster when it comes to those things. And, I would definitely withdraw my motion to send it to committee. And I definitely am going to vote it down. And let's just try to get this thing done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Brown has withdrawn his motion to send the item to committee. We will now return to debate on the item itself.
on the item, Councilor Perez.
On the item, hearing what I hear about that my colleague has presented, I don't have no problem voting no. My concern, and I want to just caution everyone, there's other issues, not only the financial part of it. We need to address that and see in what committee we're gonna apply those concerns and issues. On the matter of voting no, not to send it to committee, I will be voting no, but I think I have to raise that concern as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Seeing no further hands in the queue, there's no further debate, then without objection, Madam Clerk, we'd ask that you call the roll on authorization of the transfer. And Madam Clerk, can you clarify a yes and a no vote?
Councilors, on item number 2, which is a transfer to the stabilization reserve for the police department professional services in the amount of $550,000. A no vote would be a no to not transfer the funds to the stabilization reserve. A yes would be if you are in agreement with the transfer. Councilor Perez.
No.
No. Councilor Kern.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Walsh. Absent. Councilor Brown.
No.
No. Councilor Davila.
No.
No. Councilor Hurst.
No.
No. Councilor Edwards.
No.
No. Councilor Allen. Absent. Councilor Govan.
No.
No. Councilor Fenton.
I think he's frozen.
He's kind of glitchy. Councilor Fenton.
No.
No. Councilor Whitfield.
No.
No. Councilor Letterman.
No, the votes are insufficient. The transfer is not authorized. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
The next item is an order of taking of land for 65 Sumner Avenue.
Madam Clerk, my apologies. Without objection, I'd like us to take item 4 first, because item 4 must be taken before item 3.
Item 4, which is the appropriation order for taking damages for 65 Sumner Avenue in the amount of $1,125,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anybody here to speak to this item?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm here to speak on the item. So right now we have an opportunity to purchase the former Friendly's building, that's adjacent to Sumner Ave School. We've been using that school, Friendly's. The school's been using Friendly's parking lot for probably decades, parking there for their teachers parking. If you ever been down Sumner Ave, when drop off and pickup happens, it kind of gets a little messy. A new owner came in and bought the Friendly's. We no longer had ability to park there. The school department entered into negotiations to have a contract to park, utilize their parking spots. That has since became month to month and ended on June 30th. We've entered into negotiations for a Friendly eminent domain taking, where we agreed upon the price to be $1.125 million. That's more or less meeting us in the middle between our appraisal and what our ability to go up by roughly up to 25% and their appraisal. The market, when they purchased it, the market has appreciated significantly. What we're looking to do for the public purpose generally is to have it for parking first and foremost for the start of the school year, just because we don't want to avoid a traffic nightmare that could back up all the way to 91 and back all the way up, to the X or even further. So we were looking to acquire the property. We have no true set plans for the property. We have a few ideas that have been floated around for what the property could be used for. But we do need it for the parking to avoid any of that traffic. I know there's a few ideas out there of what it could be used for. I know the neighborhood's kind of weighed in and chimed in on what they think they would like to see there. We're not married to any concept. I was going to acquire the property and let Tim Sheen and the economic development team do their thing. I was going to open it up to the neighborhood council and the neighborhood and the neighbors to talk about kind of what they envision with it. It's just trying to satisfy and solve the public policy, the public issue of the potential traffic that we could have if we no longer have the ability to park in Friendly's parking lot.
Thank you, Capo Plant. Is there any questions or debate on this, Councilor Brown?
Yeah, it's really no debate. I just, as far as like, I'm not the ward counselor over there. And TJ, you guys do a great job. I just want you guys to think of being more creative when it comes to greenery or something. Can we get more futuristic in how we address some of like just climate control and greenery stuff? And even when it comes to parking lots, I mean, there are some of these people who not me, my mother, grandmothers, they know how to do certain areas and make big out of a little bit. So I just want you to keep in mind, would you be inclined to maybe help, maybe, I don't know, maybe whatever, what can we do? Do you think we can be creative in it?
I'm happy to look at anything creative. I know we're trying to be as much as green as we can be as a city and trying to lower our carbon footprint to the extent we can. So I'm happy to look at anything and take any thoughts and advice that you and the public or others may have.
Yeah, and I know, I know a lot of times you guys do your thing as far as like the trees and trying to do the things in the actual imprint of things. So I just, if you can work with the actual local counselor in the area to create it in the community there. I mean, they love to do that stuff. And I mean, I know you guys do a great job. I mean, I think it'd be a great community project. And, I do appreciate the work that you do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. TJ just expressed several powerful reasons as to why the city should take this land by friendly eminent domain. With that being said, as I had a conversation with him earlier, I've been getting calls from the neighborhood. As far as I was expressed that the community is not aware of this. I have some questions about the price that we're paying on this property. And the Forest Park Civic Association asked me today that the city presents to them. So TJ, that's something that I also think should be done. This is not only just a building, this is an iconic building, Mr. President, in the neighborhood. So, it's a lot of money. It involves safety. So as the ward council, I'm going to petition, I'm going to make a motion that this goes to, if I could suggest a joint meeting of public safety and finance, if Councilor Wick was open to it, I will make that motion, sir.
Councilor Davila has made a motion to refer this item to the Public Safety and Finance Committees.
Second.
It has been seconded by Councilor Brown. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on sending item 4 to committee.
On sending item number 4 to committee, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh. Absent, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen. Absent, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton. Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The item is referred to committee. Madam Clerk, please call item 3.
Item number 3 is the order of taking of land of 65 Sumner Avenue.
Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. President. That goes hand in hand with item number 4. So I also make a motion that goes to joint committee of Finance and Public Safety.
There's a second.
Second.
Councilor Diablo has made a motion to send item 3 to a joint meeting of the Public Safety and Finance Committee, seconded by Councilor Brown. Seeing none, without objection, clerk, please call the roll to send item 3 to committee.
And sending item number 3 to committee, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh. Absent, Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen. Absent, Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. The item is referred to committee. Madam Clerk, please call item 5.
Item number 5 is Springfield City Council remote participation policy.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. As I'm the sponsor of this order, I'm going to turn the virtual names over to Vice President Edwards at this time. So Vice President Edwards, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since you are the sponsor of this item, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vice President Edwards. And thank you, members, all of you, for your participation and feedback since our last meeting. As discussed, I took that feedback and worked to make some changes to the proposed remote participation policy that both keep us in compliance with the state's open meeting law, both in the interim while the emergency orders remain in effect, and also that will allow us to remain in compliance after March 31st, 2023, when the remaining emergency order will expire and will return to full open meeting law implementation. I also think that the draft that I'm about to review with you all is going to more properly capture my intent and spirit relative to remote participation going forward. So I have submitted a number of amendments in writing to the clerk, and I'd ask the clerk at this time to share the screen so I can review the amendments for the record. Thank you. So you'll see the first part of this written amendment is simply to insert the proper dates, both of which the executive order occurred and also the date that I am hopeful we will adopt this policy, that date being today. Madam Clerk, if you could scroll down. The next amendment was to eliminate our own definitions of unreasonably difficult in terms of the reasons for which a member would participate remotely, and to simply leave the definition which the state mandates, which is essentially the words unreasonably difficult on their face. And we reference back to the Mass General Law, the open meeting law, which requires that. Madam Clerk, if you could scroll. This, once again, is an amendment to bring us back into compliance relative to the amendment previously, just stating Mass General Law again. And this is, again, a piece drawn directly from Mass General Law that would eliminate the necessity of the chair to issue a ruling on a member's participation remotely. Essentially, this is the language right from the state law, which indicates a city councilor or member of a public body as soon as reasonably can be done prior to a meeting where they wish to participate remotely, would submit a request to the chair with the facts and reasons supporting their request. The facts and reasons is language, again, directly from the state law, so we must comply with this. However, I've added a provision that notification be made via written or electronic communication to the city clerk, who will keep it on record. So in essence, all requests would be automatically granted. Madam Clerk, please scroll. And finally, I've added a new section to govern our participation between now and March 31st, 2023, or whenever the special act, an act extending certain COVID-19 measures at the state level, expires. And this is what essentially will govern us between now and March 31st. And so what this states is that remote participation by members of the city council at regular and hearings meetings will be at their discretion. Provisions that require the chair and a quorum of the city council to be physically present at the meeting location will be suspended.
that subcommittee chairs may convene fully remote subcommittee meetings at their discretion. And finally, that the president will monitor public health conditions and reserves the right to convene the body in a fully remote capacity and or to provide adequate and alternative access to remote meetings to protect the public health of both members and the public in consultation with the Commissioner of Health and Human Services. So those are the amendments that I hope to make this evening. If I can receive a proper second, and Madam Clerk, you can stop sharing the screen at this time.
Second.
The motion has been made, properly been made and seconded by Councilor Whitfield. Are there any questions on the motion? I see no hands. Once again, are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
On the motion, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Councilor Curran. Yes, Councilor Curran.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh. Absent. Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen. Absent. Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
The motion is carried. Sufficient. I return the gavel back to the president. Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Councilor Edwards, we still have to actually pass or adopt the policy. That was just on the
Oh, my apologies, obviously. Madam Clerk, can you call for the roll on passage?
Point of information, Mr. Council President. If I don't know if there were any, I didn't want to cut anybody else off if there were any other questions or amendments.
Any other questions or amendments? Once again, any other questions or amendments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
On passing the Springfield City Council remote participation policy as amended, Councilor Perez.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Curran.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Walsh. Absent. Councilor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Allen. Absent. Councilor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Letterman.
Yes.
The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. President. The gavel is yours once again.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for your service. And with that, Madam Clerk, can you please call the final item on our agenda?
Final item is a resolution for the opposition to unnecessary gas pipeline construction.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Govan.
Hi, thank you so much, Mrs. President. And as I stated previously in another meeting, this resolution is going to hopefully help put Springfield and the rest of Western Mass on course to meet the goal that Eversource even has, and the state, of course, has, to have us be as least dependent on fossil fuel as we can. I'm hoping that Councilor Edwards will get the answer and what it means to be carbon neutral. But I think that we need to start doing things to reach that goal and not putting in new pipelines. And that's what this resolution is hopefully going to do. There are many people in opposition of this. Springfield Climate Justice Coalition is in opposition of the pipeline. And I think that we're joining some good groups to make sure that we align ourselves with our goal for the future and for our children and grandchildren. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Govan. Councilor Perez.
Thank you, Mr. President. For point of information, I have been involved with this issue for the past 3 years now. We have been working. As a matter of fact, last week we had a meeting with Eversource, and one of the issues that I bring to the table, and I did previously bring, this issue of the pipeline, it has not been discussed thoroughly by Eversource or the organization that is taking the leadership on this. one of the issues, and I still present it again, and I did in the past, we have a box next to the riverfront. We had the meeting with a group of Long Meadow about 3 weeks ago in Springfield group. At the time of the meeting, there was some smell of gas at the riverfront from a box that they have there, and I don't know what to call it, but I call it the box of hell with, from my point of view. And now coming to find out, and the most concern I have is that from that meeting that day, they had admitted that they're going to put another box next to it. I think that the issue with the pipeline is not only the pipes, it's the authority that they have taken in making decision-making for the community and not coming to the community and explain some of the concerns and issues we have. I was lucky enough to have Mr. Berner at the meeting. It's still an issue. I strongly advocating that we don't need no more pipelines, but the city lately in 1.5 years, we've been having all the changes and putting pipelines in the city. I think that we need to, as Kali, look at this issue seriously. Therefore, I am in favor of this resolution for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing I think a lot of people in my community, and what I would say is, you know, we say no to the pipeline. It's still a lot of things that we have to feel safe about, and we have to have communicated to us. And that's basically all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Is there any further debate on the resolution? Councilor Whitfield.
No debate, just want to be added to the resolution. Thank you. I support it. We'll vote yes. And I make a motion, if it hasn't been made, to approve the resolution.
Second.
Whitfield, thank you, Councilor Edwards. Madam Clerk, can you can you clarify the sponsors of this resolution?
I'm adding Councilor Whitfield currently.
Can you read the list of current sponsors?
1 second, let me just get into the system.
I should be on it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Yeah, we'll get the list of current sponsors. I know many councilors may want to be on, so I just want to make sure we know who's on in case we need to add.
Sure. Sorry for the delay.
And if I may, Mr. President, may I be recognized while we wait? I want to commend that it's actually being petitioned and the work that has been done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, we currently have Councilor Letterman as the lead sponsor, Councilor Perez, Councilor Edwards, Councilor Govan, Councilor Hurst, Councilor Brown, Councilor Walsh, Councilor Fenton, Councilor Allen, and that is all.
Thank you. Did anybody not hear their name that wanted their name added? I believe everybody was on there. All right. So is there any further debate on this resolution? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the resolution.
If I may again, Mr. President, real quick.
Councilor Brown.
A lot of times I think the residents don't understand the commitment and different things that we have to do when it comes to fighting. And I want to commend you for the work and the things that you did on this actual petition itself. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Brown. Thank you to all sponsors. And with that, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the resolution.
On the resolution, Councilor Perez. Yes, Counselor Curran.
I believe we've lost.
We lost Counselor Curran. Away, Counselor Walsh. Absent, Counselor Brown.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Davila.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Hurst.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Allen. Absent, Counselor Govan.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Fenton.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Whitfield.
Yes.
Yes, Counselor Letterman.
Yes, the votes are sufficient. Madam Clerk, did you call the whole roll?
Yes.
The votes are sufficient and the resolution is approved. Madam Clerk, is there any further business? But Madam Clerk, how many yeses and how many, what was the final vote on that?
We have 2 absent, 1 away. And then the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yeses.
9 yeses, okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any further business before the City Council?
There's not.
Seeing none, we will stand adjourned.